Welcome back, VC. Welcome back, everyone. Yeah, my long-awaited return. I hope everyone is keeping safe during these times. And yeah, this is part one of my little Q&A. This is probably going to be two parts. So yeah, I want to thank everyone for the questions. So let's get on with it, shall we? Okay, my first 4 questions are from James Griffiths, and let's crack on with them, shall we? Question 1. Are you familiar with any of Robert Plant's solo albums, and if not, do you have plans to get to know them? Actually, I used to own a copy of one of his albums, which I foolishly gave away probably about 2 years ago now to Scope, because I barely played it. It was his 1980s record, Shaken and Stirred, which was very 80s. It was very 80s. It was alright, it had some good songs on it. I didn't mind it, but I think I only played it a few times when I was 15, and then it just went into the collection. Like a lot of records, which I wish I hadn't got rid of, because when I look back on the collection and certain things that are gone now, it's like, well, what did I do that for? Oh well. But yeah, I do like a lot of some of his solo stuff. So I used to own that album, and I would like to get his first 2 albums he did. I believe they feature Phil Collins on drums and on a few tracks. And there was one album I used to see at Mudshark Records, which was called Manic Nirvana, and I always regretted buying that because it was quite a bit of a scarce item. So yeah, I'd really like to get to know that album, and I know you talked about it, James, and I remember you showing the cover of me thinking, I always wish I'd gotten that at Mudshark. And it was around when Mudshark used to be in a different area, and it was only about about £10, so I wish I'd bought it, because it was like, I reckon I would have gone to love that album. But thankfully it is in the antique shop in Llandudno, so when this is all over and I'll have still got an urge to buy vinyl, yeah, so we go down there and grab it. Yeah. Okay, that's question 1 answered. Question 2 by James. To what extent do you notice the drummer's performance on an album? It's quite a long question. For example, if you listen to Definitely Maybe by Oasis and follow it up by the What's the Story album by Oasis, back to back if you listen to them, and you didn't know anything about the band, would you be able to tell if there were different drummers on the record? Or that the drummer had improved, changed his style on one album to the next? Yeah, definitely. An example I can give for that, definitely, would be with Genesis. So, the last album with Phil Collins has some really good drumming on it, We Can't Dance, really good album. Kind of, I think half of it's good, some of it's a bit filler, but overall decent album. The follow-up album didn't have Phil Collins on it and had a totally different drummer by the name of Nir Zidkayu, and he definitely has a very different drumming style to Phil, and I can really tell. And both drummers, Phil and Nir, are from the progressive like genre in their roots, so, but it's just totally different drumming, and really you can't replace Phil Collins. So that's kind of my answer to that. Okay, question 3. Who is your favourite member of the Travelling Wilburys and why? My favourite member is good old Lefty Wilbury, aka Roy Orbison. I don't have any Roy albums to show, sadly, so I just grabbed out this LP. Yeah, I love him, love Roy. I love his music, and he's just got one of the greatest voices. To me, he is one of the greatest American singers of all time, one of the great American artists. Arguably the greatest. It's either him or Sinatra for me. So yeah, Lefty Wilbury, aka Roy Orbison. Question 4 is a good one. Do you think any of Bowie's post-80s records are as good as the 71s? Oh yes, absolutely. As I've mentioned this before, my favourite, like, there's that great, in the 70s, Bowie had had a great line of records from 1974's Diamond Dogs, actually all the way to the beginning of 1980 with Scary Monsters. That is a brilliant line of albums, and then after that, throughout the 80s, he went a bit, let's say, pear-shaped besides some of his singles, which were better. And then he did Tin Machine. But then in the 90s, he came back and had this brilliant line of albums, from Black Tie White Noise to Hours, which are just absolutely amazing records. I highly recommend, actually I highly recommend you listen to all of them if you haven't, people. Black Tie White Noise, The Buddha of Suburbia, Outside, Earthling and Hours. All brilliant albums and just highly recommended. Especially Black Tie White Noise and Outside. They are incredible. So that answers your question there. Okay, I've got about 4 questions now from the lovely good old John Bellamy. Thank you very much. Why do you prefer records over CDs? Okay, now I don't prefer records over CDs. I'm just a fan of both formats. I don't have a CD player in my room. Besides records, I listen to music on my phone. So it is quite difficult to listen to CDs. I've got a bunch of CDs in the cupboard, and someday if I get a nice CD player system, definitely I will listen to CDs. Just at the moment, it's just vinyl is the only option, or my phone. So yeah, there you go. Question 2 is quite a good one. Which actor would you want to play you in a film of your life? I don't know. I just put down good old Taron Egerton, because he's from not far from here, Llanfair PG. But Taron's great. He was in the Kingsman movies. He played Eggsy, and of course he's famous for playing Elton John in Rocket Man. So Taron's just a cool guy. I love his films. I think he's just a cool actor. He's really good at what he does, and I hope to see him in more stuff in the future. So yeah. Question 3. Which record out of all the records ever released would you consider being the Holy Grail? The Grail! The Quail! Did anyone get that reference? If you didn't, but if you did, you deserve a gold star. Anyway, sorry about that. I would consider, the first ever release by Factory Records, Fact 2, a factory sample. I will say, when James Griffiths did his Joy Division video and his friend Joylan had that, I nearly gasped, because that is such a, it's just an incredible two single set EP. You know, you've got Cabaret Voltaire, you've got Joy Division, you've got John Dowie, you've got the Durruti column, and I would just love it if I found that someday for a good price. Not £200, way cheaper than that. I would absolutely buy it. It would just be a huge grail in my collection, definitely. Okay, question 4. Do you like horror films? In particular, The Conjuring 2. Have you seen it? I'd be interested to hear your views on that film. I do love horror films. I love the classic horror films. I love Hammer horror films. I love the Warner Brothers 40s, 50s films with Vincent Price, so The Abominable Dr. Phibes, the brilliant murder mystery House of Wax. If anyone hasn't seen the 1953 remake of House of Wax, check that out, it's amazing. And yeah, I just love stuff by John Carpenter and Sam Raimi, so I love the classic horror films. Horror films of these days, for example, like The Conjuring 2 or Hereditary or Midsummer, are boring. Sorry. I'm not a fan of today's horror films. I really don't like them. Sorry to disappoint people who may like them, but I'm not a fan these days. They're very, as Rockboy680 said, I will say, I'll try and quote him of what he said about every horror film, which isn't really true, by the way. New horror films today are predictable. Most of them. Sorry. So, yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on. My next question is from Brenda. Hello, Brenda. I hope you're doing well over there in Ireland. and she says, have you listened to much blues, rhythm and blues? Oh! Not really, no. I do like work of Eric Clapton. I've got a few of his records, but not his more his later stuff, not his like bluesier stuff they used to do in the early 70s. I don't have that. But I do love, a good example of British blues would be Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, the early era of the band, and this is the greatest hits compilation. And it's got some great blues tracks on here. Yeah. And my last one is from Gil, and he says, do you have an album or artist you really like that you know most of your family and friends don't like? I've got two for this. It's first is the Pet Shop Boys, mainly for primary school, because everyone knows this band who went to primary school with me. Everyone knows who these were, because I was 10 when I got heavily into the Pet Shop Boys, and people probably know the songs Rent, What Have I Done to Deserve This, It's a Sin, and Hearts. They probably know all those songs, and other ones as well. So yeah, sorry about that. And this is a band my father is not a real fan of. Yes. I like Yes, but, you know, he's not a huge fan of them. I understand why. Some of the stuff's a bit later on anyway, but yeah. So yeah, that is Q&A part 1. I hope everyone enjoyed this part, and I'll see you again for the next part, which is where I'll be answering the questions of Richard McCook, and they're all great questions, so stay tuned for that video, and bye bye for now.